Hey gang, in today's video, let's cover what a record variable is in Salesforce Flow. Now, if you saw my last video on variables, or if you're already familiar with them, then you know that you can have different variable types in Salesforce and even outside of Salesforce with different coding languages. And a variable is basically a container that can store a value. Now, in addition to your standard basic variables, you can have record variables and collection variables. We'll go into record variables today and cover collections in the next video. So, what is a record variable? It's a container like any other variable, except the value that it stores is an individual Salesforce record. And instead of storing individual data types like normal variables do, this variable type stores all of the field values in your Salesforce record. And it doesn't even have to be for a currently existing record. You can use a record variable to populate a record that isn't in your Salesforce database yet. The distinction there, by the way, is that a record variable for an existing Salesforce record will have an ID value populated within that variable. A record that's yet to be created might have all the other field values populated, but that ID field within your record variable will still be empty or null if we're using code speak, until it actually saves to your Salesforce database. So let's recap. Normal variables are containers that can store a wide range of values. Record variables contain an individual Salesforce record and all the field values for that record, whether it exists in your system or not. So let's see what this looks like in Flow. Okay, here I have a schedule triggered flow that I've configured to run on the first of each month using this decision element right here. Assuming it's the first of the month, this getRecords element is going to search my Salesforce database for all of my open opportunities with a close date in the previous month. This loop element is going to iterate through each of those opportunities and do something with them. What I want to happen is that for every opportunity that gets found, I want to create a task to alert my opportunity owners that they should really follow up on their deals. And to do this, we are going to use, surprise, surprise, a record variable. So let's create one. I like to name my record variables as such when I'm making them, so I will say record task. For the data type, I'll select record, and then for my object, I'll select the task object. Now, I won't check the allow multiple values collection checkbox because that will turn this variable into a record collection variable, and that's not what I need. Okay, so now that we have our record variable, let's actually set up the steps so that we create each of those task records. Now, using our record variable, we're going to populate the individual task fields using an assignment element. Let's add that assignment within our loop. By the way, for a thorough explanation on how loops work, I'll link to another video here. Assignment elements allow us to populate variables. So let's populate all of the task record fields that we need by searching for our record variable here, setting our operator to equals, and plugging in our values. So now let's keep going for all of the fields that we need to populate. Now, don't worry if you don't understand what all of these values represent or how I got them. The point here is that we're populating an empty task record variable with all of the fields that we want. If you want to see the full breakdown of this whole flow experience, check out that loops video that I mentioned earlier. Okay, so I'm not going to leave you all hanging without actually making sure that our record variable and our assignment element works. So before we start debugging, let me just quickly talk you through what's happening in this loop. Ignore this. This is from the last video on variables. Here we have our assignment element, which we just finished setting up, where we're assigning our record variable all of the task fields that need to be populated as we create each of the tasks for each of the opportunities that go through this loop. This assignment element is adding each individual task record variable to a record collection so that by the end of the flow, we can send that collection of record variables to the Salesforce database and actually create those tasks. So we'll cover this piece in the next video. Now let's debug. Oh, have to save. And yes, the flow is working too well because today is May 3rd. It is indeed not the first of the month, so the flow just went straight to the end. So just for the sake of the video, let's flip this Boolean logic on its head so that we can actually get this part of the flow to debug. Okay, so let's look at what we've got. Our getRecords element has successfully found opportunities that are still open with a close date in the last month. Our loop element is going to iterate through all 3 of those opportunity records that it found. And we know that it's 3 records because these are the opportunity IDs. So for each iteration through the loop, we are creating 1 task record using our record variable. So let's look for our prepare tasks to alert deal owner assignment element in the debug log. Here's the first one. And this results section is showing me that our record variable has all of the values that we set in that assignment element. Here's the second round where we're populating that variable again. Here's the third. And by the way, the big thing that's different here is this is this what ID. So this what ID is the actual ID of the opportunity that's iterating through the loop. So by the very end, our record collection variable has 3 task records. And again, each task record is showing no ID because these records are not in Salesforce yet. So once the loop is done and we get to that final create records element, we send all of those task records that we prepped using our record variable to Salesforce. So I hope this video was a helpful overview on how record variables work. If it was helpful, give it a thumbs up. And for more videos like this, be sure to subscribe. Thanks.